Aloha! Welcome to the Live Ukulele Podcast. My name is Brad Bordessa. I've already tried this once, and I got buffer click noise. And the further in it went, the worse it got, and it was unusable. So let's try it again. I'm going to keep it short, succinct, and touch on kind of the highlights of my ramblings from yesterday that didn't work out. And that is about the importance of learning a song all the way through. Because I talked about several things, but that was really the big thing that I wanted to bring home and share from my own experience. Last weekend, Saturday, I hosted a lovely workshop on movable chord shapes on Zoom. If you were there, thank you so much for attending. If you weren't able to be there, but you still registered, thank you as well. I hope you enjoyed watching the replay. And if you haven't heard about it, or you haven't jumped in already, there is a replay available, and registration is up on liveukulele.com/store. If you go all the way to the bottom of the page, you'll find past workshops that I've done. This one turned out nice. The recording quality turned out nice, and I think the presentation turned out pretty nice as well. So if you're interested in the idea of movable chord shapes, we worked through using the three main major chord shapes and how to understand what the heck is happening within them, how they relate to each other, and also how to use them in songs. We played some practical exercises and examples using songs and showing how you could apply these chord shapes in different ways, in different positions on the neck to achieve different outcomes. So if you're inclined, go check that out, have a look. The next upcoming workshop is also available for registration. That's right at the top of the store page. And that will be on May 25th at 10 a.m. Hawaii Standard Time. If you want to join in, we're going to be talking about, this is kind of more of a beginner workshop. We're going to talk about how to move efficiently between chords, how to not get tripped up on your fingers, how to have kind of a game plan and find a path physically between chords instead of feeling like you're starting from scratch every single time. We'll learn how to connect the dots using smart fingering and fretting and those kinds of things. So it should be very helpful for beginners who are feeling like they're getting stuck, kind of hung up on their physical abilities. This should help alleviate some of that frustration and some of that pain. And otherwise, if you like the podcast and like the work that I do on liveukulele.com, you can go to liveukulele.com/store, check out any of my lessons or ebooks there. That is the best way to support. It's very greatly appreciated. Let's keep this train going. Keep spreading the ukulele instruction love all around the world. Thanks for being here. Okay, so yesterday I talked for like 40 minutes, got on a good roll, was talking about ways to better utilize the resources that are available to us in this digital age. And the longest and probably most potent point that came out of it was sharing about my experiences growing up, learning to play, and songs. The struggle that I had learning songs and how getting through songs was a detriment, not getting all the way through songs was a detriment to my playing. So back in 2005, I started playing ukulele, and I took a Parks and Rec class with Kumu Roselle at Hale Halavai, and it was basically just a strum along class, just like you'd expect to find at any ukulele club or whatever, all over the place. It's like how people enjoy the ukulele, so was the same case there. It was just kind of Kani Kapila style, follow along, I'll show you some chords as we go, and it was good enough, and it got me started, and it was really great. The nice thing about that class was that it provided a framework to play on top of, right? Auntie would sing, and we would strum along behind and work on getting our chords right and our rhythm and things like that. But then once I had kind of graduated from that class and moved as far as I could go with her assistance, I sort of went out on my own with a much vaguer sense of what I needed to do and accomplish when studying and when learning. And so I was talking yesterday. Super frustrating that didn't pan out. I'm so sorry, guys. Tech, just sometimes it's not cooperating. You got to try again. But what I was talking about was Tropical Storm Hawaii. If you remember, you probably are grinning right now because it was like the original ukulele tab site for Hawaii songs. You know, there was Ultimate Guitar and Chordy was kind of a big deal back then. But Tropical Storm Hawaii is where you found the stuff that was on Kappa Radio. It was on KWXX. Those songs that we all grew up listening to here in the islands, but whether it be like Joanne or Kyle Crater Boys or, you know, maybe some Jake stuff if you were super duper lucky, reggae songs, that was all on Tropical Storm Hawaii. And that was probably one of the only places that you could get it. And on Tropical Storm, it was very community driven. It was all community submitted songs and tabs, all in text format. There was no fancy PDF Lily Pond or Guitar Pro tabs. That was unheard of. Like Dominator was just getting going at that point. But you had access to 1,000 songs or more. I can't remember exactly what the number was. It was a very large amount of songs that you could, of varying quality, that you could just pick up and learn off of this website. And when I found it, I was over the moon. It was really a big deal because I didn't know something like that existed before. I was just like, oh, that's a cool song on the radio. I wonder how you play that. And if I sat down to try and figure it out, I probably got frustrated because I wasn't quite there. I couldn't quite crack that code yet. And so getting on Tropical Storm, it was sort of like the floodgates opened up and you had all these opportunities and all these songs that you could learn. So that's what I did, is I would, click through this one, try and play a little bit of that. Oh, I know this song. Oh, I like this song. Click through that one, play a little bit of that song. Click through this one. Oh, this one has the chords. It's no tab, but it has the chords. Play some of the chords. Oh, this one has the intro picking, but that's it. Okay, play the intro picking. And certainly I learned a lot that way, playing through stuff and seeing how it worked and moving my fingers on the instrument. That's always important. That's always helpful. But what that kind of taught me was ADD ukulele learning, if you will. And so it was a little bit like, oh, squirrel. And I would go off and learn something. And then, oh, there's so much more that's also available. And then I would go learn some of that and some of that and some of that. And what you end up with when you learn that way, as I would find, is that you only have little pieces of songs. You have a cool intro riff here, or a cool chord bit here, a cool chord progression. Because I didn't sing back then. And if you don't sing, you don't have the body of the song. You have to force yourself to hold it all up, put it all in there. And I didn't do that for a long time. For the first couple of years that I was playing, I just had these little bits and pieces. And somebody would be like, oh, you know how to play? Play a song. And I'd be like, oh, I don't really, I didn't have anything to really share. Because all I had was like, I can play this cool intro lick that I learned. I can play you this solo from this song that I learned. But I didn't have any full pieces to present. And it was a hard habit to break. But I realized that if I wanted to play ukulele into the future, maybe as a career, this is all kind of vague at that point. But I realized that I had to have some repertoire. So at some point there was a shift. I don't remember exactly what it was, if there was some moment, some embarrassing thing where I didn't have a song to share or something along those lines. But I made the shift and I started to have full songs. And it might have been around the time I started jamming with like Isaac and Michael Wong, because then we had a little group and one person could play the chords, the other person could play the solo. Because if you're trying to be like an instrumental ukulele player, which we all were at the time, nobody sang, then just playing the lead melody by yourself is not very fulfilling because it sounds so empty. You have to be a really bold player, which doesn't tend to come naturally at the early stage. You have to be super bold in order to hold that melody by itself without any accompaniment. And this was way before we ever figured out that you can play melody and chords at the same time and create a solo arrangement. That wasn't even on the radar. You heard Jake CDs and some Herbo to Junior stuff, but you heard strumming in the background and then picking on top of it. You didn't really realize if they were doing solo arrangement stuff. You didn't realize that it was all necessarily on the same ukulele. It was kind of like, oh, there's a bunch of different tracks on there. He must just be picking a lead part on top. Little did we know. But that's where we were stuck. So by having those guys to play with, it started to become feasible to have a whole song to play. Granted, we were relying on each other, like, oh yeah, like you play this part and I play this part, and if we go our separate ways and somebody corners me like, oh, you play ukulele, play me something, that wasn't, didn't necessarily solve that problem. But what it did do was get me thinking in that complete song package. Because if you want to play a gig, you want to go out somewhere, maybe, if you're just getting started playing, if you're a kid like I was back in the day, you want to get a gig, you got to have some songs. And little pieces of songs do not count as songs. It's pieces of songs. So I guess what I'm getting at is that one of the most important things that I can impart to you folks is the importance of learning a full song all the way through. Whether or not you plan on ever getting a gig, from a student perspective, from a discipline perspective, learning the whole entire song is really going to teach you a lot as a musician. Because even if you don't sing, if you sit and learn the song and you figure out all the chords and you play the whole song with all the chords, all the chord changes, and you hold up the rhythm, that forces you to play a very specific role. Even if it's a role that you kind of have to imagine. You have to imagine the rest of the band around you. That's super valuable, that part of it. Or if you are just learning the picking part, you learn the picking part, play the picking part, and if it goes all the way through the song, great. Do that all by yourself. Learn to hold it all up by yourself. Because you need all that. You need to get all the way through the song, even if it doesn't sound like you would like. Maybe you're waiting for your band to come together and you want a rhythm guitarist and you want a bassist or whatever, or you're just, jamming in your basement and you don't have any desire to ever play with anybody. That's fine. But getting a whole song together really takes your music to the next level because you have that little bit of, accountability for the music that you're playing. It's not just a little nibble here and a little nibble there. Most of us as musicians are kind of like on the path of being a musician. You're not trying to be a mouse where you're like a little bit here, a little bit there, scurry around, have this, scurry around, have that. You're trying to have something substantial. The music should be substantial. And in order to have substantial music, I think you need a full song. And it's a really good habit to get into of learning the whole thing. And so this kind of ties back in with utilizing resources well. If you have access to something like Tropical Storm Hawaii, you have access to something like Ultimate Guitar, the sky's the limit. You have so many tabs available. So what is very helpful is to really decide on a song before you start learning it. And you commit to that song. And it's like, okay, do I like this song enough to play it all the way through, to learn it all the way through, learn all the parts, everything that I need in order to have this whole song, whether it be all the chords all the way through, all the verses, all the transitions, all the parts. Do I like this song enough to do that? Is this song within my skill level to a degree where I can achieve this? That's important as well. Because what you really don't want to do, that I did for way too long, is, I'm going to learn this song. You learn a little bit of that song, and then, I'm going to learn this song. You learn a little bit of that song. You never finish anything. You never have anything come to completion. And there's a huge amount of beyond just having repertoire, there's a huge amount of music that you can't get into, you can't learn to express, you can't work on higher level stuff with unless you have the whole entire song. If you only have a little piece of a song, you can't play with dynamics that much. You can play with like interphrase dynamics maybe, but that's really advanced stuff. You want to be able to focus on the big picture, and the big picture requires having an intro, and then a verse, and then maybe another verse, and then the chorus, and then a verse, and then the bridge, and then a chorus. By having all those parts, all of them together, then you can play with things like dynamics. And okay, I'm going to play the intro with lots of enthusiasm, and then I'm going to bring it down for the verse. And then I'm going to have a loud transition between the verse, and I'm going to bring it down again. And then we get to the chorus, and of course, everything is energetic and as much as I can give to it. If you only play the intro, you never get to experiment with that stuff. You never get to see the bigger picture. Or even like hand stamina or mind stamina. If you only play a little bit, you're going to get used to only doing that. And when you go and play a whole song, maybe you show up at an ukulele club and they play through the whole song, your hand's like, oh my God, what are you doing to me? You never do this. You're going to be that much further behind because you just haven't played all the way through full songs. So suffice to say that learning entire songs is really important. I think it should be a very high priority for any ukulele player. Certainly any ukulele player that wants to do something with ukulele professionally or semi-professionally or, any of the above. If you want to play a gig, you got to have songs, and you're never going to learn songs if you only learn pieces of songs. So you kind of have to be the bad guy with yourself and say, this is the song. I have chosen this song. I'm going to work on this song until it is done. All the way done. I know everything that I need to know in order to present it. Say you're going to go to an open mic or something. You want to get it to a point where it can go to an open mic. If that's the goal. And by doing that, you're going to learn so many different things. You might get frustrated because there's a lot more song to remember. You might find that you can get through the first verse, but the second verse is tripping you up. Or the transition from the verse to the bridge or the bridge to the chorus is weird. You can't quite get it. Being able to... It's really one thing to be able to just play a little piece and one part. That doesn't really tell you a whole lot about an ukulele player. It's when you put them up on stage and you say, okay, play a song, now play another song, now play a third song. Then you really start to get an idea of who they are as a musician and where they're at skill-wise, what their level of presentation is at. Because a lot of people will wear out. They just won't have it in them to power through the songs like that. And if you do have that ambition to go play a gig, you need to have those song packages, complete song packages. And the more you do it, the more full songs you force yourself to play through, the better you're going to get at it. And then you start collecting songs until you have song pieces, you assemble them to be a full song. Then you have songs and you assemble them to be a set. And the set is, usually like in musician terms, it's usually like 45 minutes and then you take a break. Play for another 45 minutes, take a break, and then you blast through the last hour or whatever if it's a 3-hour gig. That's usually how it works. But a set is also playing at the open mic night. Okay, I'm going to play 2 or 3 songs at the open mic night. What is my set? What are my songs that I know all the way through? Because no one's going to care if you go up there and play the intro to Honey Baby or Drop Baby Drop like we used to do back in the day. They're going to look at you and go, okay, where's the rest of the song? Keep going. Don't stop. That's not the whole song. And it's going to be awkward for everybody. And I've been there and I've done that. And it's just not enough. You got to have the whole song. And as much as some people may not like it, there is a huge benefit to singing, just from this standpoint. When you start singing, you open up a massive door that allows you to present many, many, many more songs in a complete manner just by singing a little bit. You don't have to be good. You don't even have to share it with anybody, but just having the singing to go with the chords or whatever, you open up so many songs that you would otherwise wouldn't be complete. Like, I'm talking about complete songs here, but from a performance standpoint, if you go to the open mic and you just strum the chords to the song, once again, people might look at you funny and go like, okay, but where's the rest of it? Because having the melody at least go with the song, that's a huge part of it. Just chords by themselves is just you playing chords. It's having that extra bit, and the singing can add that and allow you to go from just playing chords that nobody recognizes, that don't mean anything, because there's a million songs written all with the same chords. There's not that many things you could play where it's like, oh, it's that song because of the chords. Like in the ways that you play the chords, maybe, but for the most part, the chords themselves are not usually a very signature part of the sound. You got to have something else. And so that's sort of why I started singing, is because I realized, oh, I'm teaching students, they need something else. We can't just play the chords because they're wondering, okay, I'm strumming the chords, but where's the rest of the song? That's what they're thinking. They don't care if you sing nice or not, but they're wondering, where's the rest of the song? There's no more song than this? This is it? It just doesn't work. It's really hard to carry something along in that way. And as much as you might believe in what you're doing, and as much as you might be playing those chords really well, it's just not complete unless you have either a melody, a picking melody to go on top of it, or a solo arrangement, or singing to go along with it. It's really kind of a big deal to have that whole package there. And I don't say this to discourage people who don't have the entire package, because that's part of the journey as well. It's like figuring out how you're going to present that. That's part of it. But it's just a matter of being aware of the expectation and how you can fulfill that and how you can best represent what you're trying to accomplish. And the best way you can represent is to have a full package. Sing. You know, we have this kind of bad expectation these days that everybody's going to sing perfectly because they're used to hearing what's on the radio. And everything that's on the radio is auto-tuned all the way to hell. And it doesn't sound like real people singing. That's just not realistic. Like, yeah, all the kids are on TikTok and they put their voice through an auto-tune, and they all sound beautiful because they're all perfectly in pitch. And people don't sing like that. There are bad singers, and there continue to be bad singers, and there have been bad singers who make amazing music, right? You could make a big long list of people who have crappy voices who have made amazing music over the years. If you can't think of any, start listening to old school music and making a list. I think you'll find that maybe even half of the people that you grew up listening to, or half of the people maybe like pre-90s that you listened to, didn't have that great of voices, but it worked because their songs and their music and everything really were, their whole package, their whole presentation of the full song meant that their voice didn't matter, right? Like Jimmy had his guitar playing and crazy songwriting, and you know, Bob Dylan had poetic storytelling songwriting, and Mick Jagger had the whole Rolling Stones rock band thing going on behind. There is totally a precedent for people having bad voices and making amazing music. That is absolutely a thing. And don't let modern music and modern kind of opinions lead you away or discourage you from just bringing a raw voice to the table. Because even if you sing bad, if you believe in it enough and you can, you know, present it authentically, I think you'll find that a lot of times people would rather listen to an authentic, strong presentation of a song than something that has maybe a beautiful voice but isn't really that musical or isn't that nice or yada yada, like a lot of the modern poppy music that people are used to hearing. Like, to me, it's all boring because it all sounds the same. There's no substance to it. Whereas if you listen to somebody who is obviously not auto-tuned, maybe some more indie music or something, there's a lot more life to it. It feels more like music should feel. It's got something to it. Anyways, long story short, learn full songs. Commit to learning full songs because it teaches you more. You have more that you can do with it, with the song, with a full song, than you can do with just a piece of a song or a chord progression or a picking part. The whole thing all together will teach you so much. And it also opens up the opportunity of, oh, you play ukulele? Share a song with me. Play me something. And you'll have something for when those moments arise. And, it may seem kind of hokey sometimes, especially if you're in a place in the world where people don't expect much from the ukulele. But that's a little piece of being a musician. I think that's a little part of the kuleana of being a musician, is that responsibility to have something to share. It doesn't need to be good. It doesn't need to be amazing. It doesn't need to be any of the things that people expect. But if you can do it cohesively and you have the whole package there, boom, you can throw it down. This is who I am. This is what I've got going. And if they don't like it, too bad. That's a them problem. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're around on May 25th, I'll be doing another Zoom workshop, this time talking about how to change easily between chords, geared towards beginner players. If you know a few chords, but you find that it takes you a while to change between them, or that when you do change between them, they kind of buzz or thump or any of the above, you're not happy with your ability to get to a chord change or get through a chord change, then this should probably be the workshop for you. We'll talk about how to string those things together and smooth things out noticeably for your playing. And as you build that expectation for the next chord change and the next chord change, you won't be as scared of moving through a song if you have a nice background in how to move your fingers easier and more efficiently between the chords. So that's May 25th at 10 a.m. Hawaii Standard Time. If you want to find out some more information or register, join, you can go to liveukulele.com/store. And while you're there, any of the lessons or ebooks that you see, if you purchase any of them, that's the best way to support my work here on the Live Ukulele podcast. You get a world-class ukulele lesson or resource. I get to pay my bills. It's a good deal. Thank you all for being here. I'll catch you in the next episode. Live Ukulele podcast is published on the first and third Saturdays of every month. Catch you on the 18th, I guess. May 18th for the next podcast. Until then, keep on jamming. Learn all the way through the song. You might learn less songs, but that's okay. Learn one full song instead of 5 intros, 5 little mini tabs, 5 little chord parts, whatever. Learn a full song, one song at a time, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, you'll have a full set of songs you can take to the open mic and rock out. Ahui ho.